I hope you guys are all well. We're back. Another week, another episode. We're going to talk some good things today. We're going to talk about some things agents can do. We're going to talk about the state of our fun market that we're experiencing now. But before we get into that, as you see, I'm back with the two subject matter experts, Mr. Robert Garcia, who's the Director of Operations and Sales here with the Eric Stewart Group. And we have Eric himself, the CEO and the top agent of the Eric Stewart Group of Long and Foster. Before we get to, quick little introduction and ask them how they are, let me tell you a little bit about Real Talk. Real Talk is brought to you by the Eric Stewart Group to help you navigate today's real estate world. We will be discussing buying, selling, and everything in between. The show is not just for consumers, it's also for our fellow agents and anyone who might be interested in real estate. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me again. I appreciate you guys coming on. How are we doing this morning?
We're doing good. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Amir, for having us back and to putting these very informative live videos. So appreciate that. And we're navigating the real estate market of 2022. That's what we are doing right now.
Eric, how's the surf going with the real estate market?
Guys, good. Thanks. Everything's going great. How's
Good. Well, Eric is surfing still, so that's good. We're surfing the market. So let's get into some of the things we're going to discuss today. So some of our topics that we'll go through is how to continue to see success as an agent in today's market. As we say, the show is not just about for the consumers, it's also about our fellow realtors. So today we're going to actually discuss this, and I'm excited for this, to discuss this with Eric and Robert on how they still, how Eric has been able to see so many recessions and be as successful as he's been and have a team, and Robert, I'm with him through some of those recessions and all the fun stuff. How can we still be successful as agents in today's market specifically? Then we're going to get into the fun stuff, the numbers, the mortgage rates and recessions, the inventory, the buyer demand, the rate projections, and then the way we're going to end it is a market prediction from our two subject matter experts. We're going to hold them to this because we're going to revisit this in the next quarter and say, hey, what do you guys think? So before we get, we're just going to jump into it. Eric, do you hear us still?
I can hear you fine.
Perfect.
I had a little trouble with the microphone connection here, but so yeah, this is going to be
good.
A great show here. I'm excited because this is on every news show. Where are we going? Are we almost there? And how do we handle ourselves as real estate? We're working with sellers who need to sell their homes. For us not to react in a panic, but rather to reacting about how we can guide our clients through to get top dollar. So
yeah, I mean,
I'm glad we can chat.
Panic reactions are never fun reactions, but let's jump into it. So the first topic, success in a changing market. What I have here is the stepping stone that we take a lot of our agents through, whether it's training that Eric does, the help that Rob provides to most of our agents, vision, goal, plan, action, and success. That's how majority of businesses can work themselves through these recessions or become recession proof. But Eric, and this is really for you, as someone who has seen a few down markets, and we've discussed this, and you've kind of told us, some stories, some fun stories about those down markets you've experienced. But as someone who's seen a few down markets, what are some things you did to continue to stay in business? Because if you think about it, majority of small businesses go out of business within the first 5 to 7 years. And honestly, that's just because they don't have a plan in place. They don't know what's going to happen. When that market shifts, it's panic mode, right? And so how have you been able to continue to stay in business and also still have a successful team?
Amir, selling homes and specialness. I've seen this time through a maybe fourth time, depending upon how you look at a recession in overall real national economic feeling, right? This is a cycle that's taken place because of the interest rates. The 3%, below 3% last fall, 3% back close to 6%. They're a little bit less than that now, but the overall and that word is so good because spec is like the sea, and a prospect is looking go someplace, trying to make a decision to make somebody who's really thinking about going forward in whatever, a prospect to buy jewelry or a prospect to buy real estate in this example is somebody's looking at when you cloud a buyer's ability to get through purchasing, then that is no, because they can't see forward, right? And so we've prospects pretty substantially, and we've seen whether it was the Great Recession back in 2000, which was we had a credit crisis that was going on during that window, or going back to when I first started in real estate, we were doubling economic environments were plentiful. We were in a run up over a 5-year period, but in 1990, we went into a little bit of a recession in the DC, and prospects are still out there. It's important, and I'll just tie up this. You have to exercise faith. Faith is knowing something is true and see it or put our hands around it, right? State, we see clearly that's lending, houses going to contract. Buyer. Question is, if we've got a smaller pool of prospects to assist in buying, you have to be on the like a prospector, right? Like think of the Old West, somebody who goes and shovels and pans gold. You've got to do a lot more panning for gold to okay. So have the faith. We know as agents that the market is not going to just die apart. The economics of our country is still. We do think that if you have faith that's like doing some things well. If you don't know how to prospect, that's maybe a good reason for you to continue to be here. We're bringing you the truth in real estate. We're telling have faith, exercise that faith, and is another one, and I'll just throw that out. It's important now when we're feeling somewhat sad or feeling of getting the business that we really like. Go to a gym. You can join gyms locally for a month. Take classes where other people are leading you through those classes. Be fairly religious about it. 2, 3, keep your health strong. People will see it to you. You want to do business with you. Plus, you make relations turn into business. I'm speaking as one who knows this. So,
yeah, I mean, those are some great points for all of us to think about. I mean, having that faith, continuing to work within that faith, as you said, going back to the basics, right? Like it's always about fundamentals. Tim Duncan was successful because he mastered the bank shot, right? Little step back, little bank shots, but those were the fundamentals. And so the way that you have faith in the systems, procedures, and the plans that you've put together is what's going to make you be successful, especially in a changing market, because there will always be fear, right? Your clients right now have the same fear that you might have. And the best way to get around that is to be the calm in the storm by giving them and being there for them and to help them through that. And having faith is huge in that. So, Robert, we just heard Eric kind of walk us through having that faith. And he mentioned that, the physical health, like joining a gym, being your best self, is also a huge aspect into this. What are some daily habits an agent can have to ensure success?
That's a good question, Amir. So, it's part of what an agent, it's all about mindset, right? If you wake up one morning just saying, man, I just not feel like I want to work today, right? So it's just like, look at athletes, right? Like a Messi, a Cristiano Ronaldo. I'm sure there are days those guys don't want to go and work out, right? Don't want to run, don't want to exercise, but they still have to do it because they have a goal in mind. So the little distractions are always going to come. Always look at your target and always have a plan for what you're working on. I always tell their agents here, says everything is in mindset. If you continue to put stuff in your mindset that it says this is awful, this is bad, this economy sucks, and nothing is good, and so on, yeah, eventually you probably might as well just die of a heart attack at home and be the end of it. So I think it's important to eat well, wake up early in the morning, meditate, do your journaling, listen to some audiobooks or read a book if you prefer the old way. Exercise, weather now is really nice, so you can take a nice walk for half an hour. Just basically kind of like a decompress and start fresh, and then just go after your day and win your day. And that's very important. If you're going to be traveling from home to your office to showing homes, don't have the news playing. Just have a nice, like an audible book that you can be listening about skills. And I have a couple audible books that I downloaded that I like, and I'm just always listening. And even just like how to handle objections, how to answer something, and so on. Just rather just sharpen your skills than just go where the rest of the world it's going. Remember, there's still going to be opportunities regardless what kind of market. The only way is that you have to be optimistic in order to see the opportunities. And that's the key here. You got to be optimistic or have faith. As Eric said, it's the same thing. Believe that something will materialize even when you cannot see it or touch it.
Having faith, being optimistic, I mean, those are some huge takeaways, because it's easy to just, fall into the trap of, well, this is happening and that's going to happen and the GDP is going to get released and the Fed might do that. I mean, like it's very easy to get sucked into that negativity. And again, if you're acting scared and you're sitting down with a potential client, they're going to sense that. And then that anxiety is just going to portray to them, and it's just not going to be, it's going to be this endless cycle of that. I want to ask you guys one more question, both of you, and then we can kind of wrap this up. Eric, what are some books, right? And I if there was a way I could show the book collection you have in your office, I would, but I just got to move too many things. But what are some books? And Robert, the same thing goes for you. What are some books you would recommend to any fellow realtor to, whether it's download it on Audible or get a hard copy and read? Eric, we don't have your audio. Well, maybe, there we go.
So, about essentially sharp Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of High Excellence book, and one of the steps, you can't just, it'll become dull through overuse, and they have to actually, we all need to be sharpened. It's not when you're having to cook, it's when you're not time, where you're not cooking as much perhaps, and you've got time, as Robert said. So I'd recommend people the Purpose-Driven Life by Rick. This is a book by Chris boss, which can you all see that there? Or am I frozen?
Never split the difference.
Yeah,
Nope, we see it.
Split the difference. Okay, yeah, great, excellent book, and lots of great training that we go through with members through how to handle objections, and specifically at this point in time, if you're in any business, if you're watching this as a business, you know that what we're saying is true for whatever business and through a recession, a contraction of sorts. It's all to take these thoughts and sharpen our sword. This time that we're going through, we have a little bit more time. Be goal driven. So those books, I suggest specific goals. Robert and I and Amir were discussing this critical it is to how critical if you're going to try to get listings or you're trying to get in front of people, prospecting, pan for gold. That you make will lead to a certain number of appointments, will lead to a certain number, so on. So start with the basics.
Right.
And fine, by the way.
It's still a little bit. We still hear you. Still a little bit cut up. So maybe you want to get the AirPods. Maybe we go back to the basics, huh?
Why don't we let Robert?
Yeah, we can let Robert go in and Robert, if you want to share your screen at the bottom, there is the screen sharing option. You can click that. It's an arrow going through that. But I mean, those are huge. I mean, never split the difference. Again, that's a great book to read. That's something great that you guys can go through. And we're gonna. I saw what Robert's about to show, and I'll give you a little bit of context about the way that Mr. Garcia works. And Eric and I joke about this all the time. Whenever there's an objection brought up, or whenever there is an issue, right? Because if you ever meet someone and they say have no issues in their company, they're either just they got the silver key, or they're just telling you things that are not true. So whenever we have a hiccup or an issue, we bring it up in our managers meetings, in a manager meeting, and Robert's first thought is, well, I have a plan. So I brought up an issue, or I brought up a suggestion, and I said, what books can we read? And now I'm going to present you the plan. All right. Ready, Robert?
Go for it.
This is the plan. What you guys look here, and I'll give a quick context, and then you can jump into it. What you guys are looking at here is our internal portal. It's the Eric Stewart Group portal that all of our agents have access to, that have a plethora of information such as, operations, marketing, sales, all the fun stuff. Our meetings are recorded, all the fun stuff that's in there. And this is Mr. Garcia's growth portal. Mr. Garcia, go take it away.
As Amir said, if it's going to be repetitive, it needs a system, and I'm the systems guys here. So this is what all of our agents go. So when you become an agent in the Eric Stewart Group, part of your onboarding and welcoming is you will receive some of these books, and you will be required to read them because what they provide has so much value that, I mean, it's almost impossible to just have you just memorize a script. I mean, these things is mindset, tactics on how to overcome an objection. And I just mentioned the Chris Voss is one of my favorite books. And that he talks about just, different ways that you can handle Atomic Habits, one of the best sellers, James Clear. It's amazing book, highly recommended. Exactly What to Say. This is Phil Jones. He is one of the keynote speakers for the Tom Ferry Summit. Summit this year. The Book of Yes, Kevin Ward, amazing book. Getting Things Done. This is very easy to digest. It's just really get stuff done. The Slight Edge, amazing book, just to give you a whole perspective about life in general and how you can approach it. Of course, national bestseller, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent by Gary Keller. Amazing book. He gives a lot of tips, a lot of insights. The one thing, this book is, I read this book so many times, and I can tell every time I read this book, there is always that I always take away from it. It's just so. I mean, I think I read this book like 5 times already, and just the amount of things that says just concentrate on that one thing and the one thing and the one thing only. And it's very interesting. I think the 7 levels of communications. I don't know if that's the one Eric mentioned earlier before. Great book for real estate agent, brand new real estate agent. Michael Mayer, I think it's the name of the guy, the author, just talks about this book. It's just amazing. So he brings that forward about how you go in life about other people. Ninja selling, very unique way of preparing for selling. Nice way. I've taken their class. It's pretty awesome. Brandon Mulroney, it's reverse selling. A great guy, has a channel too. A lot of tips for agents. The 12-week year, another great book that I highly recommend. Now, you say, well, Robert, I don't really like to read as much. It's boring. I fall asleep. Yeah, I have the Audible, I bought the credits. I just don't want to do it. Okay. You want a podcast? Okay, we have the best podcast for you too. Gary B, Bigger Pockets, Pat Hyben, Unlisted. This is by Brad Inman, one of the biggest, well-known marketing companies and for real estate agents. Real estate, Tom Ferry, one of my favorites. Brian Buffini Show, the Yes Talk, and this is some of just the favorites here. I mean, there's some other stuff out there that you can potentially go over, but you see, I'm preparing people right mindset mentally. As Tom Ferry says, sometimes an agent's brain is a scary place to be, right? And he really stresses that out every time. It's just because we always think of the worst, never of the best, right? And that's one of the things. So rest assured, if you're part of the Eric Stewart group, there's a lot of tools over here that we will give you. As Amir said, we have our agent success portal where we have everything from A to Z, buying and selling and everything in between. You'll find it in that portal.
As you can tell, when we bring up issues, the systems guy quickly spruces up into it.
Let me just add,
please
add to that, because and Amir and I, one of the have confidence within a difficult market too is by having the consistency and knowing certain things consistently each time. Real estate, an agent's brain, because as agents, we're reading, it's definitely something that if your system is in place, either through your broker or you can't rely on a backbone to become very successful as a real estate agent. And so we have really high agent productivity, really produce very well. So we have two agents who want to have that kind of system. And I've heard a lot of agents on a day-to-day basis just coming in or listings that we're working who there isn't a consistency in how things are handled. So to have systems to give you even a better through a transitioning market like we are.
Yeah.
That. Yeah.
I mean, that's the key point, right? It's like there's a lot of agents that are probably, it's very easy to just kind of get stuck, right? Like 0 to 10 million. And then like, you don't know how to get to that 11 to 20 and so on and so forth. And so one of the things and I'll toot our horn a little bit is like why we are as successful as we are is because we have an understanding of what roles each of us play. And when there is an issue with X, we know who that falls on. We know the responsibility. We know how to get it done. And when an agent comes to us, that's a brand new agent, we have a system that they go through, and that's a marketing, sales, and a training system. And so that's why it's important of, if you're getting started in real estate, or if you're at a point where you've hit a ceiling, and it doesn't have to be 0 to 10. It could, people hit ceilings right before they get to 100 million, right? Like we experienced that, we made shifts, and then now we're, well into it. So it's important to have systems. It's important to have procedures, because that is how you become successful in any industry and any business. We're going to shift a little bit. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. If you want to reach out to any of us directly, our emails are first name. So for Eric, it would be eric@ericstewartgroup.com, Robert at ericstewartgroup.com, and Amir at ericstewartgroup.com. Or you can call us at 800-900-9104. And I'm sure Robert would not mind sharing some of the information he has with you, as what we do with our agents, because we're all about transparency here, and we want to see everyone in our industry grow. So the next fun thing, we're going to kind of do a little bit of a shift here, a little bit, but it's still pretty relevant to what we're talking about. We're going to go into the thing that is on everybody's mind right now, which is the hot word of, I don't know what it's felt like for the last couple of months, is recession. Is a recession coming? Are we in a recession? What I want to go into right now is I want to talk about, and I want to dig into this, is rates and recession. Because if we look at these, you will see a breakdown, and this is from this is national numbers. This is not specific to Maryland, DC, or Virginia, or any other. It's just all national numbers. What you will see is the era, right, and how long the recession was, and then where those mortgage rates look to. And you'll see they went from 16 to 11, 18 to 13, 11 to 8, so on and so forth. And then you'll see the one that we came out of in April of 2020, which was the COVID-19 recession. We don't have any data for what we're going through now, but these guys are living, breathing, and eating this stuff every day, so they can tell you kind of where things are. But Robert, you look at this graph, right? Or you look at this rates and recessions, and you're sitting down with a buyer or a seller, not really more sellers, because this doesn't really pertain to them unless they're looking to buy somewhere else, but you're sitting down with a buyer. How do you help them understand this, what they're looking at, as they're staring into this recession that they're looking at?
So this is a very interesting data that it has many ways to be studied and analyzed. But what I always tell people is, listen, even with the increase in interest rates that we're having right now, if you compare to what was happening in the early 1990s, you will be paying a lot more in interest rates in the early 80s. So right now, just to say, well, my interest rate is 5.5%. Gosh, really? Is that the end of the world? It's not. So it's still very affordable to actually go and borrow money to buy a house for so many people. But yeah, I get it. People say, well, I want to get my 3%, and that's what I want to go. I said, look, that type of market was not the normal. The normal is always being 5 to 7%, always bouncing around, that between those two numbers. But with this in mind, I always tell people, it's just, let's just work the numbers. So immediately when you tell them, what would it cost you right now to buy a $450,000 home in Montgomery County at 11% versus 5.5%? And just write that, just put that in perspective to people, that buying a home right now, it is better. And then of course you got to show them appreciation. Real estate it's an asset. It appreciates over time. So now you can say, okay, fine, you were paying 11%, but the house probably was worth $290. Now it's worth $450, and you're only going to be doing 4.5%, 5% in interest rate. So it's still a better deal than just continue to rent. And I think it's again, this is a numbers game. Once you show them the number and what's in it for them, I think they very easily understand. Now, that's a skill itself. It's not necessarily anybody can just come and talk and give so many reasons why somebody should be buying a house right now, and you're still not convincing the person. But if you're asking questions, you qualifying the question, and you are giving a very intelligent answers with data that you can use, nobody's going to say no to you unless they're not ready. They're not ready. That's a whole different story.
That's huge. I mean, helping people understand it. And Eric, I would love to hear your perspective on, I mean, you've experienced a few of these fun things here, and just kind of, if you can walk us through it, as the changes you've seen in the market since you got into the business. And so, but what I want to highlight on, and something that Robert said, is it's huge to understand that yes, rates are higher than to what we were relatively used to because we were coming out of this COVID-19 recession. We all were on lockdown, not really spending. We got money. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it. If you look, 80% of the money that's in circulation right now was and was printed when we were in that recession. So 80 cents on a dollar you're looking at that's in your pocket, that's from this new wave of money that was pumped into the economy. There has to be that balance. And so real estate has always, and probably will always be, that's always going to appreciate. Yes, the rates are at a different point. And to what you said, Robert, I can also understand it from a different perspective where it's like, yeah, the rates were at 18 and 13%, but the house was at $50,000. But if you look at it, that 50,000, the value of money is different now. So we can't really, start comparing things like that. But Eric, as someone who has seen and not only seen this, but experienced it, and has walked many buyers, thousands of buyers and sellers through these up and downs, how are you able to really understand that anxiety, right? Like it is what it is. Like how are you able to kind of take that anxiety, understand it, and then in numbers process it for your clients?
Just a little basics here. A contraction in the overall economy is what qualifies a recession if there's 2 months. And you notice that in March, April, that period, there was just a 2-month recession. And then, as Amir said, 80 printing money, flooding the economy with cash to sustain the flow of money through probably a depression, at least temporarily. We could have been in a much worse recession, and because of the contraction globally, but we flooded the market. So here, I've been through four recessions. Okay, the 90s, then the 2001, right after the dot-com recession, and then the COVID-19 recession. I think we're probably in my fifth recession to it. I think everybody's sort of, and we're all being fed the same, whether it's on your Instagram or it's on your TV or your radio, or talking about how things, and that contraction, it could be that we're not actually, we could be there in the next month. It could be we're still growing, certainly in real estate. You look at the longest recession that we've been in since was a year and 6 months, and that was the Great Recession. But it's not the end of the world. It was 18 months that people are still buying and selling homes. So
right.
People have income, people have cash, they have ability. There's plenty of cash out. We have so much money still in our economy that has been flooded. Some of it's coming out to sustain a lifestyle and some other things is what I'm reading.
Yeah.
That we've come to the end of this road yet. I think we're going to have more of a flattening now, and doesn't get killed through this current round. Go notice that that's the top mortgage rate recession from January of 80 to July of 1980. At the time, the Fed chairman was a guy named Paul Volcker. Essentially said, do what we have to do. The following one in the Reagan administration, I have to check that, but 4 months that followed, literally 1 year, 80 recession, our country went into another. That was because the Fed just raised rates to the back of inflation. And I don't know. I don't. We're going to break the back of inflation where we are right now. See the rates just fall all of a sudden. I think the behavior is probably going to. How far do we have to go in order to tamper inflation reserve for home sellers, home buyers? But at the end of it, they don't happen for very long traditionally,
Mm-hmm.
and ease up. That gives us a lot of faith to be able to say, hey, most recessions, minimum 2 in the last 4 recessions, the longest one we had was they were 8 months in the early 80s or early 90s, com boom.
Right.
And that's it. So,
And you can, kind of correlate most of this with different like major events that have happened, right? So like when you're talking about the greatest, like the longest duration since the 80s was, the Great Recession, which was a year and 6 months. I mean, I'm sure people felt it for longer than a year and 6 months, which is why I probably felt, much longer for people, especially for someone like me who watched kind of my parents go through this. But there was also another event that was kind of married to that, which was ninja loans, right? No income, no job, no, like we were just giving out loans to anyone who could fog up a mirror, right? So
right.
we learn our lesson. Hopefully, we've learned our lesson through these mistakes and are able to kind of work through this. And then in COVID, of course, we saw the shutdowns, and another big change that was there is also we understood that we didn't need to be in the office to work, right? So we all kind of stayed at home. We saved money on our commutes. We saved money on the lunch. We saved money on the coffee. We saved all this stuff. And so there is that reserve that most people are sitting on if they spent it wisely, whether they invested or not. So there's always that side to it as well. But it's the cycle. It goes down, goes up, all the things happen. The next thing I want to jump into is inventory, because this is a huge indicator of where we go in real estate specifically. When inventory is low is when we see these huge numbers of where we're selling houses for our clients at 120,000 over listing or so on and so forth, with no contingencies and all the crazy stuff we saw. But we're going back to a normal, right? Like the normality is coming back. And what you see right here is the month over month, and this is for June of 2022. And the inventory change you can see, I mean, majority of the country is looking at, I mean, some of the lowest ones we see is like 8% right here in South Dakota. You see 7% in New York. You see another 7 in Delaware, so on and so forth. But these are growing, right? Like we have increased 20% of inventory, the national average, 20% of inventory over the last month, which was May of 2022. So, Robert, as an agent, you see this, you hear the anxiety from your clients. How do you walk people through, hey, with the inventory change, this is what it's going to be? So what is that calming factor that you're able to give to your clients or anybody who's literally listening now? They're looking to buy or looking to sell wherever they are in their process.
Sure. So I think you used the right word. You have to calm their fear, right? There's fear, anxiety built up around what it's happened or this data. And this data, it has to be digested in different ways. So how do I help people to make that decision is I stay educated, number one, very important. I stay engaged with what's going on. I have data or visuals to share. And of course, I do educate them through the whole process. So what I would just, if depending if we're talking about a seller or a buyer, I would just pull a couple articles just to show where things are and always tell them that, look, this is a good market. We just have to maybe just change our strategy. So I'm going to share with you guys another thing here.
He's always ready, folks. He's ready to share. I might have to stop sharing mine, Mr. Garcia. Give me a second.
Okay.
See if you're able to share it now. He's always ready, guys. He's ready. He got the graphs. He got the portal.
You got it there?
I do.
Okay. So this is the most recent article that just came out from one of the big companies, and it says the homes are actually taking longer to sell. So if you're having a conversation with the seller, you actually have to make them understand why it's taking longer to sell a home and what should be the approach going into the market. It's that you have to improve conditions, you have to, do some other work around the property. You also have to look into the pricing and all the competition, all these other things, so that you can actually, last thing you want to be is just to be the highest home listed in the same neighborhood. Nobody's looking at you. You're actually helping other homes go under contract faster because of the difference in pricing. And then, of course, you have to start then chase the market at that point. And this is very interesting because this just shows us that for the week ending July 21st, 30-year mortgage rates rose to 5.54. Fewer people searched for homes for sale term on Google. Searches during the week ending July 16 were down 23% from a year earlier. So that, again, just to tell you exactly how buyers are doing. This is just data, guys. This is just data you have to look into. But let me just show you this.
But there's one thing. Sorry, Robert, and I'm going to interject. And I think this is something that I hear Eric and you as well have said this. When the fireworks go up, the home sales come down. Right. So this is normal, right? Like, this is not out of the blue. Like, yes, searches are even from a marketing perspective, guys. Like, when we market, we don't do we don't push as much right now. So what you're seeing here, Robert, and maybe this is kind of a contesting what you're saying. It's like, I agree with what you say, but at the same time, we're kind of going back into the normal now, right? It's taking longer to sell. We're not seeing those crazy prices, correct?
Yeah, but last 2 years was the normal for so many people. For a seller, just got 50,000 over asking price. Other guy down the street just got 100. That felt it was the normal. So they still think that listing my house in August of 2022 or September, I should be able to get $50,000 more. Now, your job as a realtor is to educate the client to understand that may not be quite the scenario this client may be facing. Hopefully it is, but it may not be. Here's the data to back what I'm saying. So if you look at here at 2022, this red line right here, this started to come down like right around end of April, May. And I think Eric will agree with me. Some of the record prices of the listings that we sold at the group were achieved in March, April, and early May. I think there's still some houses that sold very well in June, but not for the competing offers that were at that point. And look at where things are coming down. Another indicators that I'll give you right here, flat builders, when the market is really good, they just start building. They don't care. We have a supply chain issue. They still kept building. Now they're pulling fewer permits, right? Now they're throwing incentives for buyers to come and tour their properties. They will finish a lower level. Now they're even paying a decent commission to realtors because they're experiencing the slowdown and they have all these inventory that is not moving. So they now have to become creative and give incentives. So with all that data, that's what I will probably use to tell someone where the market is and we're heading.
Right. So it's safe to say, and Eric, correct me if I'm wrong here, but so it's safe to say that because of what you guys experienced in the last 2 years, you're now navigating the maze that has become the quote unquote normal of selling your house fast and for top dollar. But in reality, those 2 years were the exception to the rule, which then triggers what you guys are dealing with right now. Correct?
Yeah. And back on what Robert was pointing out, if you can go back to that graph you just the story on that graph is last year, the year before, one, and you look at today, and so right here on pending sales, notice pending sales by the time we got to May, but go darker blue line just above the red line. The prices that were the number of pending at a peak in May, and it started drifting lower from the year. It did that later, which is that gray line at the bottom, simply because trough down in the April time frame. And if you go to point that out there, there's a trough April, okay, a trough below that lower,
right there,
that line, right, yeah. So that is the impact of the recession that we were going higher. Pending sales jumped because of but still still later in the year, their peak more like in July timeframe, and then it still drifted lower. Like Amir said, like Robert would say, like pretty much your best time to sell is going to be February, March, April. And then after that, the pending home sales definitely drops. So normal. It's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So the world has not fallen apart here on this. Okay, this is not. And prices achieved April, early May are the ones that settle in April. Always the end of the highest settlement, but the contract was back in April. Right, not even close to the high of the early spring. But that if you're attending now, and you're thinking about selling, you'll want to speak with us about helping you the next 8 to 9 months to get ready to take advantage of that demand that happens each spring.
And that's huge. I mean, right? Like you're walking people through what is you're walking people through the maze of before COVID. This was normal. Time on the market, price adjustments, so on and so forth. COVID hits, we panic, go into a few recessions, go into this downtime, push, shove money out. Oh wait, inventory's down, rates are low, everyone's refinancing, and then now we're dealing with the maze of what's happening here. I want to show this one graph, and I'll run through this before. We go to the next process, which is kind of talking about showings, right? The buyer demand. What you're looking at right now is months inventory of homes for sale. And let me give you a little quick background of what it is you're looking at here. This is how many months of inventory is there on the market. This is from NAR, which is the National Association of Realtors. So this is national numbers. Like, for example, what you guys see here is we had 4.6 months, right? So months worth of inventory back in May of, I believe this is 2020 right here. This was 2019, and then we're going into 21 and so on and so forth. But we went into these dips right here, right? Like December, January, inventory was low. We kind of picked up, and then we experienced this huge wave, which is what we're coming out of right now, right? This is what we're talking about. This area right here where the maze happened, or the exception to the rule happened, which then turned into normality, is right here. 1.7, 1.6, 1.7, 1.9. Prices go higher, days on the market go lower, crazy things happen. And then now that we're coming out of this, you as agents are experiencing the maze here. Eric, as someone who majority of your business is listings. How do you manage this? Like, how do you sit there with a client and go, listen, what we experienced was crazy. Now this is what we're going to do. And Robert, for you, what is a normal month's inventory of home sales that, and I know that I haven't asked you this for national number, but maybe you can give us kind of the Montgomery County or Maryland number. When Eric is done with kind of walking us through how he approaches this graph and helps his clients see the reality.
So, Amir, you have to be straight with the client. Tell them exactly if you're not sure, because you're not doing this little bit of you're not going to know. You're going to be blown and taught of what people's perceptions are, with evidence that there's a consistency. 19, and you go back in time 35 years, it's the same. Our markets where there's a tightening of inventory, there's an expansion of inventory. We saw a massive expansion at 9 and 10, 11, and more or less kind of on the flat side, but really a lot of houses who tighten up over the cycle over the past 8 to 9 years. So what the key is really not where we were, and we don't want to price we house on the market in the market that we're in, where we are, or if you want to wait until focus on preparing our home for that early, giving you a choice and understand your 4 or 5% difference in what you're going to sell the property. Then you might still say it's not because you got to pay the mortgage over the next 7 or 8 or 9 months. There's life to go on, so on. So anyway, just help put them in the market now or then, because there's still not much. Look at it. May, there was 2.6 months of time, and we were selling homes fast all year long. We're quickly right now. 19 days on it's really quick. As an average across, it's really fast. We're still, I think, probably a 10 area on average. So if in 2 months we're looking back and the number has gone from 4.5 months, then that's we'll have that in real time. But it's good. Again, we like to bring the truth to get a sense of where things are, and able to tell better in 2 months whether or not we've hit then on what's already happened. Right. We're not going to be able to tell you we're in the middle of it and see that we're in contraction. We'll see what that looks like.
Yeah. Robert, what's a normal number from a, and again, I know I'm putting you on the spot. I'm not asking you for a national number, but just give me perspective, because Eric is talking about, the specific numbers and how he's going to walk his clients through it and being transparent, right? Like that's what it's got to be. So what's a normal number based on this graph?
So for Montgomery County, let me give you 2 extremes, and then we'll probably come up with a number that's what I will call it normal. So early this year here in Montgomery County, I'm talking about early Feb, I want to look at what was available for sale in the whole county: condos, townhomes, single family homes, co-ops, everything that was for sale. We had about a little under 600 units total for the whole county. Looking like this is a county with over 1 million people, and you only have that amount of homes for sale at that time of the year. It's winter time. People are not, necessarily. But if I would just go back to COVID year 2020 or 2019, the inventory around that time of the year will probably have been about 1,200 to 1,500 units. So now you see a huge difference.
So you're talking
right?
about half, right? So you're just to be clear, you're talking about half of the inventory, 600 this Feb. So right here, 1.7 nationally. You're talking about Montgomery County, but national numbers 1.7. But what you just mentioned is if you went back, COVID year, Feb of 2020, 3.1 we see here. You're saying it was 1,200, which would be half of what we're seeing. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. So that just to give you an idea of where things were at that point. Now, back in 2018, 2019, kind of like average number of units was about 2,000. I will say was the average. So
wow.
with that in mind, at that point, a buyer potentially had, at least easily 10 homes that they can preview before they can make a decision. And of course, inspections and appraisals and all those things were allowed, but still there were some homes that were getting 2 or 3 offers. So with that in mind, I would say for Montgomery County, probably 2,000 will be the max of number of units for sale, what I can still consider under healthy circumstances. Any number above that, most likely it's hinting you a recession, and of course that's most likely a buyer's market or a reset in the market. There's just a lot of changes, but overall, I mean, people are not moving, so that's the biggest thing. And I think Eric has been looking into these because the type of clients that we deal with. You've been living on your home for the last 20, 30 years. Either your home is paid off or you really have a very low mortgage on the property or just a home equity line of credit. Now you need to sell that place and you need to move somewhere. You need to downsize, right? where are you going to move right now where you're actually going to have the same payment? It's very hard for some families to actually find that, or a couple individuals. So people are actually are kind of like rethinking their strategy. And as Eric always says, like maybe aging in place, it's something that it's probably the next strategy for people versus just having to make this inventory available. So it's a lot of things that are applying pressure to the market, and of course the market will react in different ways.
Just to clarify, when you made that, there's a recommendation listing home and just making that home work for you versus making a move. And as a population are staying in their homes longer, then open up that single family home that might be first to the market as one person continues to live there, or it's just the choice that people have. And I consistently sell when I will have to buy something for the same result of it. Well, it's because of maintenance. Seniors are trying to figure it out. Hey, we all have assisted living. Got somebody who cuts my grass. So essentially, they assist. I pay them to do it. So seniors have figured phone, and internet, a lot of tools. So some contraction in inventory because of that senior.
Yeah. So I'm gonna run through this next slide semi quickly because we are getting kind of closer to our end time, and there's still one thing that I really want to talk about, which is your predictions of what you think the rest of the year will look like, and then eventually what 2023 you think will look like. But this graph that I'm gonna show now is the showing activity throughout the country, and this is from a company called Showing Time, which I believe, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, it's the major company where agents use that app or that tool to set up showings for their clients. And as you can see, their VP and general manager of Showing Time said showing activity continues to be at levels lower than we're used to seeing at this time of year, pointing to a market in transition. Following the surge in mortgage rates, it's reasonable to expect that showing activity will continue to ease, especially when compared to last year's historic numbers. So yes, we are seeing a slowdown. It is the time for a slowdown because a lot of people go on vacation around this time of year. You know, we tend to not put too many houses on the market. So yes, showing times will slow down. In the West, I mean, you're seeing 45%, South 22.2%, Midwest 15.1%, and where we are 13.3%. And as a country, we're down 18.2%. Again, what we're looking at is data of the last 2 years, which was this exception to the rule in real estate. And then all of a sudden, we're seeing these huge numbers, which is why I think a lot of us are reacting in an anxious way instead of kind of looking at the historical data, because what happened in the last 2-3 years is not the normal. Of the last 2 years is really not the normal here. Gentlemen, if you want to take 30 to 60 seconds and just give us your thoughts on this. I do want to move on to the next slide we have here, which is going to be all about rate predictions and then what you guys think.
Robert,
Eric, if you want to go ahead first.
I'll just give it real. So remember, this is written by a guy who's from a company gauges the number of appointments on their tool is used. This is a company of agents to make it easier for agents to schedule appointments. So there are a number of showings. But this is all what we're used to seeing at this time of year. What incredible demand over the last couple of years is more going back to a transition back to a very healthy market. It's not a percentage. It's down from where we've gotten used to, but so a great time to sell, great time to be a real estate buyer now that you have a little bit less.
Yeah. Mr. Garcia, 30 seconds. Thoughts?
I think it's all about seeing the opportunity. I think regardless where we are, this is still a great time to buy homes. I have a friend that it's an investor. And he told me, Robert, in the last 12 months, I bought like 5 properties, investment properties, because this is the best time to buy right now. So with that in mind, I can tell you that despite what's going on in the world, I think we still have great opportunities. As long as you do your proper math and you partner with a good professional that will help you navigate, because there are going to be unknowns, unforeseens. That's that's the nature of real estate. But as long as someone can help you navigate those rough waters or surfing waves, you'll be fine.
Awesome. So let's go to the fun part of it. I love predictions. I'm going to walk you guys through these predictions, and then we're going to get these guys to give us their predictions, and then we'll kind of revisit them a little bit down the line. So mortgage rate predictions. This is as of June 2022. 2022 Q4. They're thinking of average. It's going to be about 5.07, which is different than where we are right now, and could be potentially very different than what the Fed might suggest. 2023 first quarter, same. Second quarter, same. Third quarter, we're thinking about 4.86%. So all of these numbers are predictions and projections and so on and so forth, and we don't know who, these are just basic numbers nationally that are being put together. Now, let's talk about this and let's see what these guys think. Your predictions. So what I want to hear from you guys is, what are your predictions for the remainder of this year and the first 2 quarters of next year? And where do you think, based on the rates, we will be as a whole, as a market in real estate? Will we still be continuing to see a bear market? Will things be what they normally were? What are your thoughts on that specifically? Eric, if you want to take us away with that and tell us what your thoughts are with what's coming up.
Well, I do interest rate environment over 5%, very difficult for and without seeing a much more serious contraction. 5.25%, 5.5%, 5.75% is going to be. It's going to be hard. Everything's going to kind of go along. We're going to see quite the inflation in demand, put us more into normality. I think these numbers are pretty. If we are in a contraction, we don't see inflation broken. Like back in 2008, there was a 6-month recession, and then because the Federal Reserve was committed, could see to recessions similar to what we had in the early. I think we're definitely going to see one if we're not already. And then I think, as we're coming out of it up again, and that we see inflation kicking to have to act again, which is going to, we'll see. Yep.
Cool. Mr. Garcia, we saw these numbers. We kind of quickly glanced over inventory. We heard what the general manager and VP of Showing Time said. You just heard Eric's kind of prediction of reactions and rates and kind of the direction we're going. What do you think is going to happen the rest of the year and then beginning 2 quarters of next year?
I think it all depends of a couple of factors. I think this week the Federal Reserve is meeting again to increase interest rates, and I think everybody's expecting 75 basis points increase. The same time this week, the GDP results are going to come out. And also that's if in 2 quarters in a row we have negative results, that means we're in a recession. And if we go into a recession, just as a term, just speaking from the books, right, how they define what recession is. If we end up saying that we're going into recession, I think then the Federal Reserve is going to be less aggressive in increasing interest rates for the remainder of the year, but also they have to keep an eye on inflation. I think we already have seen the peak of inflation. For some cases, you see the price of gasoline is starting to come down slightly, but it's coming down. In some places, this morning, Walmart and Target announced that they are not selling all their items at the same speed they were doing it last year, which is going to force them to start reducing the prices. They are having a lot of surplus, a lot of inventory. So with those things in mind, I think that probably interest rates will line up with what we're seeing right here. Yes, there will be some cases where you'll see a spike jumping to 6% for 2 or 3 weeks and then just come down and a dip and then just come back up again. But I think that in order to keep a healthy economy and a healthy real estate market, you're probably going to be bouncing between the 5 and 6%. I am willing to say that we will go as close as 6% in short periods of time between now and Q3 of 2023. There's going to be some parts of the country that's going to probably see 6%. That's kind of like the standard rate for some areas. But a lot of things. That's just like the guy that's juggling. That's what the government is doing, juggling all these many balls right now, and they don't know, which one they need to drop first, or which one is going to be the one to drop on the floor. And of course, they have to react to it.
Reactions. That's what we deal with every single day. We react. We kind of create that evolution, make sure that we're up to date on what we're talking about, and make sure that our clients are getting the best service that they can be. If you guys want more information on how to prepare, how to right size your home, all the things we talk about, of course, outside of the graphs and outside of some of the things you hear from us, but a lot of the things that the philosophies and what we believe in are in these 2 books. If you guys want access to these guys, call us today or visit us at ericstoregroup.com. Under resources, you will see all of our guides, or call us at 800-990-9104. Again, that's 800-990-9104. Thank you, gentlemen, again for joining me on this week's episode. I'm going to hold you to those predictions. We're going to come back and revisit those predictions and see how good you are in predicting what the world will throw at us. Without anything else, unless you guys have some parting words for us, we will go ahead and call it a day. We will see you guys in August with more content for you as agents, buyers, and sellers. Gentlemen,
thank you.